I wanted to talk about fathers today, and I was thinking about my own father, who's turning 80 years old this year. And I actually put him on camera a few years ago and put him in one of my films, and I asked him some hard questions, Michael, about the divorce when I was 7 years old, and the way my childhood was. And what I found is when I listened to him, I judged him less and I understood him more as a man who was making decisions the best he could at the time.
Sure.
And who was a product of his father, who was in the Dust Bowl and had to literally make something from nothing. And I'm wondering, when you think of your dad, who was born in 1917 in Sicily, and who by definition became a major part of your life, whether you wanted to be him or didn't want to be him. When you think about him as a man, Sonny Franzese, what do you think of? Who was that man? And has your concept of him changed over the course of your life?
Yeah, let me correct one thing. He was born in Naples, Napoli.
In Naples.
Yeah, I don't want him to get mad at me. I would say sincerely.
Napoli, all right.
But yes, my perception of him has changed. Unfairly at times, and I'll tell you why. He was my absolute idol growing up. I loved my dad. I idolized my dad. He was a man's man. He was a good father, a good husband to my mother, before all the stuff started with him. And then it became just crazy havoc when he became this major target of law enforcement, and all the harassment that him and our family went through changes things. But, unfairly, my dad did all this time in prison. And before he went in, he was an icon in that life. I mean, amazing, right? When he came out, it wasn't the same. And I expected it to be the same for him, unfairly, because prison takes its toll, and that street takes its toll. Different people move into different places. So I was waiting to see Sonny Franzese take over the world again. It didn't happen. He still had respect, don't get me wrong, but it didn't happen. And by that time, I was a made guy myself. So I'm figuring it's me and him. This is it. It didn't happen that way. So I kind of lost, all right, he is human. He's not the main guy in his life. There are other guys, And again, that could have been a little unfair, or maybe it was just me growing up and understanding the experience, But I can tell you this, I love my dad till the end. Obviously, when I walked away from the life, that was a major issue between he and I. But we patched that up because he understood I wasn't there to hurt anybody. I just wanted to preserve my family life, basically. And the one issue I had with my dad is...
Again, he was the underboss.
He was the underboss of the Colombo family. Yeah.
And so it doesn't get much bigger when it comes to his profile and how big he was, and iconic in even the early days of the establishment of the dominance of the mafia. I mean, he was a key figure in that.
Brian, he was the John Gotti of his time in terms of law enforcement investigation, media attention. Every day in the paper, 7, 8 different agencies trailing him all the time. He was indicted 4 times, 3 times in the state. The feds were after him. It was constant. If you would have had the internet back then, forget it. It would have been every day, like Gotti, the same thing. So if he didn't go to jail, he'd have been boss of the Colombo family, no doubt, 100%, because he had that much respect on the street. He did the work required, he was a guy. But unfortunately, his life was derailed that way. But the one issue I had with him, when we finally sat down, I said, Dad, do you realize that this life destroyed our family? My sister dies of an overdose of drugs. My brother, 25 years a drug addict, drove us crazy, ended up cooperating with the government, becoming an informant, testified against my dad. I mean, it doesn't get any worse than that. My mother and father, at the end of my mom's life, I can only describe their relationship as being ugly, because she blamed him for everything that went wrong. She was 33 years without her husband. He was in jail. 33 years, and all this stuff happened, right? So I said, do you realize that you being part of this life destroyed this whole family? He said, it's not my fault. I said, what do you mean it's not your fault? He said, I was framed, which he was, 100%. I'll take that to the bank. My dad was no bank robber. That's what they accused him of. He was framed. But I said, Dad, you weren't framed because you were a doctor, a lawyer, or a priest. You're framed because you're a street guy like me. We're criminals back then. He couldn't accept it. He wouldn't take responsibility for it. And I said, that's wrong, Dad. You got to take responsibility for what happened in our family. You can't blame mom or this and that and that. But that was the only like real sticking point with us, you know?